So I can imagine a more awkward setup, but I'm not sure how we could do it.
I don't get a podium.
You don't have a. You want mine here?
No, I'll stand in the middle. Okay, hi guys. Welcome to our panel discussion. My name is Zella Chin. I'm with TVB, the largest broadcaster in Hong Kong. And we are doing a debate on artificial intelligence will determine the future of financial services. Now, can I just get a show of hands of who agrees with this? Artificial intelligence will determine the future of financial services. Hands up.
That's an uncommitted vote. Like everyone took, Zila had to call 3 times for anyone to raise their hands.
It was 40%.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I think it's soft.
Okay, so a show of hands of people who disagree with this.
Raise
higher,
your hand.
higher.
Don't be afraid.
Okay, just a few hands. There are a lot of people who are undecided in the middle here. We'll see if our speakers can change your mind. So arguing in favor, we have Douglas Merrill. He is the founder and CEO of ZestFinance, a FinTech company that uses machine learning and data science to help lenders make better financial decisions. And before that, Douglas was the CIO and VP of engineering at Google. And over here arguing against, we have Melissa Guzzi. She is the founder and managing partner of Arbor Ventures. She has more than 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur and a venture investor in Asia and Silicon Valley. So, pro goes to you, and you will have to convince those undecided people in the audience.
Perhaps. So I think ultimately it's a little bit the wrong question. I think we're probably going to talk about lots of random stuff, but hopefully at least it'll be compelling, because I think we're probably the only thing standing between you and at least lunch, if not the bar. So we'll try to be fun. It's interesting that I'm arguing pro AI in financial services, because I think to first order, machine learning has had no impact on financial services. There are, maybe outside of fraud and program trading, but by and large, nobody who's not a client of ours uses ML to make loans. There's almost no automation of servicing. There's almost no automation of risk management, risk capital computation. Actually, generally speaking, ML's a little bit small beer in the financial services world today. So the argument that I would have to make is not only is it going to be important in the future, but going to be important in the future in some reasonable time frame. Historically, AI has always been the next big thing and will always change the world. I started doing this in the 1990s, and as of yet, Google notwithstanding, it's not clear that it's changed the world much anywhere. So the question that you should ask yourself is, where is there stuff that people do that doesn't actually uniquely rely upon the things that people are really good at, as opposed to stuff that people do which actually we're not that good at. We're not that good at seeing trends. We're not that good at kind of doing mathematics. We're not that good at being super repeatable. But we are really good at seeing images and parsing intangibles. I don't see a world in which there are a lot of human VCs, or AI VCs. That's a Freudian slip, sorry. But I do see a world in which there's a lot of AI in lending. So, like I say, will AI be the future of financial services? A, I don't know, and B, I'm not sure it's the right question. But it is clearly the case that the world in 5 years is going to look a lot different, technically and process-wise, than it looks today.
Okay, well, let's back up here and go and
hang on. She'll
get it.
That's not fair.
Please go ahead.
Now, let's just back up and do the groundwork for this, because we do talk a lot about chatbots, robo-advisors, machine learning, cognitive computing. So what exactly are the benefits of using AI in banking?
Well, I'm not sure it's any of those things. So,
oh, come on, chatbots are great.
Okay, chatbots are fine. All right, fair. I like that. Yeah. I asked Microsoft. Tay worked out really well for them. Come on, for those of you who have your phones out, do a search. TAY, Microsoft. Be a good learning experience. Come on. So ultimately, AI is the idea that you can take knowledge from the world in the form of formal propositions or in the form of syntactic data, do some grinding on that to yield a recommendation. That recommendation can be, oh, hey, you should invest in X, which is like the core chatbots for financial services. It could be, hey, you should loan to this person, which would be the core output of one of our models. But what you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to specify the way a behavior should occur and then build a system that makes it roughly logically entailed that that will occur. It's a pretty broad suite of things, but we have clients that use our software to make loans, to do marketing, to decide who to call in collections, to decide on risk capital. There's lots of different things that you can use ML for in a financial services kind of thing. But what's interesting sort of is a lot of technology companies, particularly in China, are doing really interesting financial services things as well. So the space is quite broad.
Okay, let's get Melissa in here. You're arguing against artificial intelligence will determine the future of financial services.
Melissa's like, no, I'm not. I'm an investor into misdata.
Yeah, we're an investor in AI, so pretty hard to argue 100% against AI. But I think what I do argue against are companies saying we're AI companies, and then ultimately they're not really using artificial intelligence. They're barely using big data. And what does big data actually mean? We were having this discussion earlier. But I think fundamentally, AI's been around a long time. Airbus flies by wire. That's artificial intelligence to a certain degree. You just have to make sure you land it on the runway and not in the water. But it's still AI. I think it's been around a long time. I think one of the negatives I'll argue against right now is there's just too much hype around it. And when you go to do due diligence on companies and you look at what they're doing, you're like, you're using one variable or two variables. Tell me why that's artificial intelligence. That's just, basic statistics. So I think we're not against AI by any means. Will it change the world? It'll change the world sometime eventually to a certain degree. But I think if you take certain industries like robo-advisors, there's not a single super successful robo-advisor that's a startup. Why? Because they need such tremendous scale. And is predictability by using artificial intelligence as artificial intelligence exists today better than predicting by the index? It hasn't proven necessarily to be true. So I think you have to take where AI is today and say that AI is not necessarily going to be replacing everything in the world immediately. AI 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you won't find anybody more excited about it than myself. But we need a reality check. What's AI? What's deep learning? What's machine learning versus, some basic R that most of us could do without getting a degree.
Oh, man, you brought up deep learning. You can't speak the name of the devil or she'll appear. No.
All right, this goes to you, Douglas. So you have a FinTech company, and earlier in the year, you launched a machine learning platform for your clients. So how does it work, and is it a game changer in financial services?
I certainly hope so, because otherwise it's kind of a big waste of time.
But see, that's the key thing. What is game changer? So define it, right? A game changer meaning I can eliminate all humans, I can eliminate 50%. So I think that's one of the keys, and actually, Doug, it'd be great. How do you guys actually define game changer when it comes to AI?
Thank you for the high-hanging curveball. What a great question. So our clients use the XAML platform, some to do marketing, which is to basically, if you will, do account management, decide to whom to mail. Several use it for underwriting to decide to whom to make loans, and there's lots of other stuff that gets done. We have Baidu is a public client of ours. Baidu tripled their approval rate overnight of their loan product from going from their very good model to the XAML platform, which enabled some stuff that they couldn't do. So I think that's a game changer, but not enough. We have two of the top 5 largest credit card companies in the world are clients, one of whom discovered $100 million in loss reduction. That's material.
Okay.
But not everywhere. The point is, I believe actually most people who say they're doing AI are really just pushing A or B, and that's probably not going to have that big an impact, right?
That's right.
So what do you guys think? There was a recent tech article that claimed that ignoring artificial intelligence, financial services firms will fear losing 40% of revenues to fintech rivals.
Wow, what a precise number. 40%.
It was an algorithm. That was really predictive.
Strong. I suspect the error bars around that 40% are roughly 39.
39.
No, I think I think the article is more just if existing financial institutions ignore the innovation around fintech, that they have a risk of losing 40% of potential revenue. But sure, I mean, any industry that's been around a long time that doesn't innovate has a chance of losing all of their revenue. So I don't think it's necessarily related to AI by any means. It's just that if you get too comfortable and you think that you can continue to do things the old-fashioned way, or just offline, or just and not use technology, then you're going to be obsolete. But I don't think that's necessarily specific to AI. I think that's technology in general.
I mean, back in the 90s, it was a truism amongst consultants that you'd go to a financial institution and say that within 10 years, the word bank will only be a verb. It will not be a noun, right? Like everyone should wander around saying this. And it turns out that so the notion of bank being a noun is that they're branches, right? It turns out now, 30 years later, they're still bank branches. There's this artificial precision around, this piece of technology or this piece of innovation is going to drive this vast change. Well, probably it's not. It's probably a whole bunch of small things, but ultimately, let's set it right. Like if you don't grow and change over time, you die.
Yeah.
So do you think the banks are a bit slow on adopting these technologies, artificial intelligence, digital transformation in general?
I mean, I think banks exist in a world where it's very hard to adopt AI, where it's very hard to adopt machine learning, where it's very hard to adopt big data, because of sort of, kind of capital computation world and regulatory worlds. It's very, very challenging to go in and say, oh, we're going to completely change the way we model our risk. And so our Basel III, balances are going to change. Congratulations, regulator, have at it. Like that's a painful conversation. In the United States, it's very hard to say, I'm going to completely change the way I underwrite loans, and here's the risk value. Those are hard conversations. It's a little bit unfair, right? The playing field is totally tilted towards fintech companies at the expense of banks. But ultimately, the large, multinational, multi-product financial institutions are going to have to be engaged in ML if it's ever really going to matter.
What do you think?
I mean, I think you're right. I mean, Doug brought up a really good point. The banks are somewhat hampered by regulation. When you think about fintech, this is the other thing I love now. It's not only fintech, it's tech fin. So somebody will someday explain to me what the difference is. But, the fintech companies aren't bounded by the same regulation as the bank. So if you're thinking about a bank and you want to use alternative data sources, I mean, one of the first things that comes, to their minds from a compliance officer perspective is, am I actually allowed to use that data source legally in that state, in that country? And so I think, the banks have, been sort of hit hard as to they're not moving fast enough, but they're also bound by a significant amount of regulation around the world. I would say this, I think they're doing a much better job now of setting up these fintech labs. They're getting data sets that are organized ahead of time that they can then reuse and actually see how startups can use those data sets. And so I think they're learning and becoming more progressive as what they can do within the regulatory sandbox that they have to live within.
Mm-hmm. All right, so earlier you said that there's a bit of hype around artificial intelligence,
yes,
especially this year, right?
Just add .ai to your name and your valuation goes up by 30%. And it's not that dissimilar, I'm dating myself, but not that dissimilar to the .com back in 99. But if you add .ai, 30% premium today for your startup.
Arguably, the best business is actually the domain registrar for .ai.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good idea.
We should have done that.
That's tonight. That's tonight's exercise.
So this year especially, there's been a lot of articles and press around AI. So is that all fake news, you think?
No, come on. No, there's no such thing as fake news. There's news. Everybody has a perception of what's fake or real. Maybe AI can help sort that out. But no, I think in all seriousness that there's certain things like autonomous vehicles where we're clearly seeing where AI is going to play a very important role, especially in VR, because you're going to have to determine whether something is crossing the street. But yesterday I saw a great picture from Matt Dill at Visa, which he showed a blueberry muffin and a chihuahua. And he had this matrix of pictures. And he said, can you tell the difference between a chihuahua and the top of a blueberry muffin? Mm-hmm. And in some instances, it was very hard to tell. So I think one of the things about AI is that we just also have to be realistic of where it is today. But with that said, there's some absolutely tremendous companies getting funded. My only issue about the hype today is that exactly what I was joking about is we're an AI company for this or that, and then realistically, when you start to do due diligence, there's not anything in AI that they have, but they actually are just sort of on this hype trend. And I think, like all venture markets, hype starts, lots of money flows in, money will flow out. We had drones a little bit earlier, right? We had, virtual reality. This is the typical flow. But I think right now we are in a hyped market for .ai.
All right, so Douglas, how smart is AI right now in 2017? And how smart does it need to
You're
be?
an ex-Googler. You got to answer this realistically.
Really dumb. Really, AI is incredibly dumb. It's humorously so.
Yeah.
So in the late 1990s, there was an AI program called Mycin 2, which was a program, the notion of which was you'd give symptoms to it, and it would predict whether or not you had a small set of bacterial infections, which seems like a really small, really easy problem, and it was beautiful. A guy named Doug Lanatt came up and described his car. The question was, without telling it, the question was like, what color is it? Well, it's kind of green. Does it have spots? Well, yeah, it's rusty, so it's got spots. Is it making wheezing noises? Like, well, yeah, when you turn it on, it sounds horrible. So he got the Mycin 2 to diagnose his car with smallpox, which is humorous for two reasons. One of which is humorous, and second of which it's not a bacterial infection. Leaving that aside. So, and in some sense, that's still true. I mean, if you look at the state of the art in vision work is generalized adversarial networks, and they generate those sort of 2D pictures with the matrices between them. And it's actually pretty surprising how you've got hundreds of millions of neurons in the back of your brain devoted to just object recognition. You'd think that would be redoable in a computer, and it turns out to be pretty hard. And vision is, I think, the uniquely smartest thing we've got in ML, because the way we do it doesn't have anything to do with the way humans do it. We didn't try to do it the same way. Language generation is really hard. A woman released a hilarious neural network that she trained to produce like fortune cookies, like aphorisms. And so she gave it hundreds of thousands of fortune cookies as a training corpus, and it came back with a bunch of answers, including ones like cow before sun. Okay, I don't know what that means, but my personal favorite was, when death comes, it will come alone. That's actually kind of plausible. That's probably true. I think AI is remarkably dumb, but the problems we've attacked so far, and attacked incredibly well so far, are things where being dumb is good enough. Where I don't know how we get to is when you have to get really, really smart. So I take cheap shots at chatbots a little bit for fun, and also because to really do that well, people have weird things they do in communications. There's pauses, there's all these sort of second order signals, right? Like when Melissa started hearing me, she looks down, right? That's a common human signal. You look down. How do we do that on a chatbot? I don't know. That's hard, but we need to do that. So I think we're pretty dumb, but I'm excited about the runway.
Okay. I like chatbots because you can actually get something addressed on off hours.
Fast.
Fast.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, they may not be the smartest thing, but at least, I don't have to wait for a human being to get on the phone.
And for what they're good at, they're great.
Yeah.
So when is this future reality supposed to happen? We all hear the hype out there, right? That it's all going to be run by machines. They're all smarter than us. 50 years, 100 years, 200 years?
What is happening? I mean, it's not going to be we wake up tomorrow morning, it's a light switch, and the world has absolutely changed. It's incremental. But just think about this, is that today a computer cannot even do what a 2-year-old can do, which is recognize their mother's face from another one, right? So specifically. So computers can't do exactly what a baby can do today. So that's the wonderful part about what we do, is we're in the early phases of progression to where AI will eventually go. That's the exciting part about it. But we're still in the early phases of it. And so therefore, you just have to understand that you can't completely rely upon it necessarily today, but it will progress.
Okay.
I mean, I think none of us are excited about our robot overlords. So I think probably that there's no one who's going to vote in pro robot overload. But I think Melissa just got it right. Like, when do you want to work? You want to work in a field where the answers aren't obvious, like where it matters what you do every day, and that's where ML is.
All right. So it sounds like this future reality is quite far off in the future.
Well, I guess that depends on what you think future or reality is. I mean,
and far off.
Or far off. I mean, that's right. I think we are in a period of AI development, a rapid AI development, but that doesn't mean it stops. I mean, tomorrow innovation will happen, and great technologists will continue to innovate and iterate. But
so.
we're really at the beginning of it.
Okay. So final thoughts. Douglas first.
So I'm hoping that all of you who didn't vote up front at least now have an opinion or feel brave enough to vote had we asked now, whichever one it is, shyness or lack of opinion. I mean, ultimately, we're asking the wrong question. The right question is, how can a computer do something which helps make your life better? And I think all of us in the industry and on the entrepreneurial side, on the VC side, would say, if you have an idea, if you've got some place where you think technology would do a better job than human, go found that company. There's a lot of innovation to go and a lot of value to be created.
I couldn't agree more. Innovation will change the way healthcare is delivered, financial services are delivered, but it's going to play an important role, and it will help a lot of lives as we go forward.
All right, let's see if you guys change anybody's minds here. So we'll do a final vote. Show of hands, artificial intelligence will determine the future of financial services. Did you convince more
Good
people?
job.
No, it looks like I unconvinced people.
They went the other way, I think. So, so who agrees or disagrees with this? Artificial intelligence will determine the future of financial services. Show of hands.
Maybe
Wow, we're about the same.
it's a wash.
Yeah, we got to work on this one, I think. All right, thank you guys,
Thank you.
Douglas,
Thank you.
Melissa, thanks for your
Thank you.
time on
Thank
stage. Thanks, guys.